Hello, this is Mr. Summary. Today I am going to explain a drama and suspense movie called The Skin I Live In. Spoilers ahead. Attention, be careful. The film begins with a woman named Vera, who has been held captive by the main character, Robert Leggard, inside his private home. It is revealed that Robert is a plastic surgeon who wants to develop an artificial skin resistant to burns that can also defend itself against insect bites. One night, Robert is seen presenting his theories at a medical conference. He urges the other scientists to join him in the research. After the meeting, Robert returns home and analyzes the animal blood sample that he collected at a hospital on the way. Shortly after, Robert goes to his room and watches Vera on a screen next to his bed. After watching her closely for some time, he goes to see how she is doing. Upon entering her room, he is surprised to discover that she has tried to take her own life. He immediately takes her to his laboratory and treats her wounds. After regaining consciousness, Vera asks him how long it will last, but the doctor does not answer. This implies that Robert has kept her captive for years in order to experiment on her. Robert lives in an isolated villa with his housekeeper Marilia and some servants. Marilia is aware of Robert's research and of Vera's captivity. In fact, Marilia has been taking care of the mansion for a long time. During breakfast, Marilia hands Robert a gallon of blood while informing him that it was extracted from a live animal. Robert then takes the blood to his laboratory and carries out some experiments with it. In his laboratory, he has many insects in different blood samples for his research. After that, he extracts the artificial skin from its culture and carefully applies it to a headless model. Next, he transplants the skin onto the model and finally heads to Vera to transplant it onto her. After multiple burn and mosquito tests, he comes to the conclusion that the skin is resistant to mosquitoes and fire. In the next scene, Robert attends a conference in which he states that he has succeeded in growing an artificial skin resistant to burns and insects called Gal. He also says that his invention will help in the total eradication of malaria. He also adds that the experiment worked on a laboratory mouse and promises everyone that it will also work on humans. After his presentation, the chief scientist asks Robert about the name Gal and his methodology for producing the skin, to which Robert replies that it is the name of his late wife who was severely burned. Robert also tells the scientist that he combined genes from pig cells with human cells to make the skin tougher and more resistant to mosquitoes, although the practice is illegal. Upon hearing Robert's words, the chief scientist immediately orders him to stop researching and threatens to report him to the board if he does not comply. Later that same night, Robert returns home and approaches the monitor to see Vera. Then he enters her room and informs her that he has finished experimenting on her. Knowing that there is no more work, Vera asks Robert about her future, but the doctor remains silent. Next, she offers to marry him and live together, which frightens him and makes him leave the room immediately. Later, Marilia advises Robert to get rid of Vera soon because she believes that her resemblance to his late wife may create complications in the future. However, Robert tells her that he is in no hurry and asks her to dismiss all the servant assistants in order to hide Vera for longer. The next day, while the servants are leaving, a man dressed as a tiger arrives at the door. He reveals to Marilia that he is her son, Zeca, whom she has not seen in 10 years. Excited, she asks him to come in and offers him something to eat. However, while Zeca is eating, news of a bank robbery appears on the television. Thanks to the news, Marilia discovers that Zeca is one of the escaped robbers. When Marilia confronts him about it, he readily accepts it and instead blames his colleague for not turning off the closed-circuit camera. After that, he convinces Marilia to let him stay for a few days. At that moment, Zeca sees Vera on the surveillance camera and is stunned by her beauty. He asks his mother where Vera is, but she refuses to say anything. After his mother refuses to reveal Vera's location, he ties her to a chair and begins to look for Vera. He finally locates her room and begins to force it open. However, in the process, Zeca says that he is surprised to see her alive. It turns out that Vera is exactly like Robert's late wife, Gal. Just at that moment, Robert arrives at the mansion, discovers Marilia tied to a chair, and sees Zeca and Vera right through the screen. Enraged, he runs to the room, shoots Zeca, and takes Vera in his arms. Sometime later, while Marilia cleans the bloodstained bed, she informs Vera that Zeca and Robert were brothers, although no one knew the fact. He adds that Zeca was fathered by a co-worker, while Robert is the son of Mr. Leggard, under whose command she previously worked. This means that she is Robert's biological mother, although he has no idea about it. Afterward, Vera asks Marilia why Zeca acted as if he knew her. Marilia replies that he mistook her for Robert's wife, Gal, who was exactly like her. Marilia goes on to say that Robert and Zeca had completely different childhoods. Robert was raised in a privileged family and became a doctor, while Zeca grew up as a delinquent on the streets. She also informs Vera that Robert and his wife, Gal, had a daughter named Norma and the family was happy. However, everything changed one day when Zeca arrived at their house and Marilia allowed him to stay in the annex. When Zeca met Gal, they immediately fell in love. They ran away from the house in a car but had an accident halfway there. Zeca fled from the burning vehicle, leaving Gal behind. When Robert found her, she was barely alive and her face was disfigured. He nursed her day and night, even removing every mirror so she could not see herself. She recovered, but her face could not be restored. One day, Gal went to look at her daughter, who was playing in the front yard from the window. However, she accidentally saw her face in the window glass, and it completely shattered her hope of living. Before long, she jumped from the window and ended her own life. His body fell before Norma, traumatizing her for life. Marilia then tells her that Norma also took her own life by jumping from a window. Later that same night, Vera and Robert have sex. However, Vera says the earlier man had hurt her badly, so the doctor stops. The two embrace and soon fall asleep. While asleep, Robert dreams of his daughter's death. In the next scene, the movie goes back 6 years earlier where Norma is recovering from the trauma of her mother's death. One night, Robert and Norma attend a crowded party, and shortly after she mysteriously vanishes, Robert goes to look for her. While he is searching for her, a guy rushes past him in great haste. Later, he discovers Norma lying unconscious near the trunk of a tree. When Robert wakes Norma, she screams as if he had assaulted her. Then Robert suddenly jolts awake, soaked in sweat. At the same time, Norma dreams about a young boy named Vicente, who works at her mother's boutique. Vicente is in love with Cristina, who works at the same store but turns out to be a lesbian. Later, he attends the same party Robert saw in his vision. Soon after, Norma and Vicente get along well and go out with his friends. After entering the garden, they begin to make love. While they are doing it, Norma starts having an anxiety attack and screams. She bites his hands when he tries to stop her, then he hits her in the face, causing her to faint. Next, Vicente leaves on his motorcycle after fixing her clothes and leaving her in the state in which Robert discovered her. 1 week after the incident, Vicente goes out for a ride on his motorcycle, but is soon followed by Robert, who has been waiting for the chance to take revenge on him. After chasing him through the forest, Robert crashes Vicente's motorcycle. He kidnaps him into his basement storage room and keeps him chained up. Afterward, a police officer informs Vicente's mother that they have discovered her son's broken motorcycle on a cliff. He also adds that Vicente may have fallen from the cliff and been dragged away by the sea. However, his mother refuses to believe it and insists that her son is still alive. The next day, Robert goes to a psychiatric hospital to see his daughter, Norma, but she refuses to accept that he is her father and locks herself in a closet. She has developed a fear of all men and only cooperates with the nurses. Elsewhere, Robert has tortured Vicente, keeping him chained and depriving him of food and water. One day, Robert enters the basement, cleans Vicente, and gives him food after moving him to a better place. A few days later, Norma dies, and to free himself from his grief, Robert tries to throw himself into work. So he prepares Vicente for his new experiment, shaving him and taking him to the operating room. He also invites other doctors and creates a false consent statement to perform a vaginoplasty on Vicente. Here we learn that Robert plans to transform Vicente into a woman. The doctors successfully operate on him and transform him into a woman. After the operation, Vicente wakes up and discovers that he is no longer a man and is instantly frightened. Later, while Vicente examines himself in the mirror, Robert arrives and provides him with medical dilators for his newly operated vagina. In addition, Robert gives him periodic checkups and helps him fully recover. In the process, Robert reveals that he kidnapped Vicente because of his sinful action with his daughter. With no other options, Vicente does everything Robert orders him to do, hoping that one day he will let him go. Years have passed and Vicente has become Vera. Now Vicente is the Vera that we have seen since the beginning of the movie. In the next scene, Vicente tries to escape after healing, but when Robert locks her inside the house, she tries to kill herself. However, Robert immediately takes her to his laboratory and saves her. While stitching her wounds, he calls her Vera, saying that this will be her new name from that moment on. Then he locks her in a special room, where Vera spends her time alone watching television and practicing yoga. He understands the need for a caretaker, so Robert then invites Marilia, who had stopped working at the house for years. When she arrives at the place, he tells her not to open the door and to call him if anything goes wrong. The movie brings us back to the present, where Marilia dislikes Vera wandering around the house. Robert even lets Vera go out with Marilia to go shopping. Marilia warns Robert about the bad consequences of letting her be free, but he does not take her words seriously. Later that same day, a colleague of Robert's comes to his house to show him a newspaper with Vicente's picture. She remembers performing a vaginoplasty on him and accuses Robert of lying about Vicente's consent. Just then, Vera arrives and defends Robert, saying Vicente consented because he wanted to be a lady. A colleague walks away, and Robert thanks Vera for keeping him safe. That night, while they're having sex in bed, Vera goes downstairs saying she brought some lubricating cream. But she seems to have other plans, pulling a gun from the drawer and slipping it into her purse. Before going upstairs, she caresses the picture of her past when she was Vicente. Upon reaching the room, Vera points the gun at Robert, who is stunned by her unpredictable action. Then she confesses that she lied to him by falling in love with him and shoots him until he is dead. Downstairs, Marilia hears the gunshot and goes to her room, but she also suffers the same fate as Robert. The next day, Vera goes to her mother's boutique, where she is attended by Christina. After walking around the store, Vera reveals her story to Christina, who breaks down crying after hearing it. Next, Vera proves to Christina she is Vicente by showing the dress from 6 years earlier. The film ends when Vera tells her mother she is her son Vicente. And that's how this great movie ends. Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel. Thanks for watching.